We sat around my grandmother's dining table, the same table where she had served Sunday roasts, birthday cakes, and quiet conversations that mattered more than they seemed at the time. Lorraine sat directly across from me, hands folded, back straight, composed. Ready. The executor began with formalities. Names, dates, legal language that floated past me like background noise. I watched Lorraine instead. The way her jaw tightened at certain words. The way her foot tapped just slightly under the table. She wasn't nervous. She was confident. Personal items were listed first. Jewelry, furniture, photographs. Lorraine nodded along, already sorting things in her head. What she would take, what she would fight for, what she would pretend not to care about. Then came the financial accounts. Percentages were named. Bequests read aloud. Lorraine's expression barely changed, but I noticed the shift, the subtle narrowing of her eyes. The mental recalculation. This wasn't quite what she'd expected. The executor paused, flipped a page, then reached into his briefcase. And finally, he said, "There is a letter." Lorraine looked up. "A letter?" "Yes," he replied. "Handwritten." The instructions were very clear. "It is to be opened and read aloud before final distributions." He removed a cream-colored envelope and placed it on the table. My breath caught. I recognized it instantly. My grandmother's handwriting. Slight slant. Careful loops. My name was not on it. None of ours were. Lorraine laughed softly. "Oh, this should be interesting." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "I'm sure this is where she explains everything." The executor broke the seal. The sound was quiet, almost polite, but it sliced through the room like a blade. No one spoke. He unfolded the letter slowly, deliberately, as if giving us one last chance to prepare ourselves. Then he began to read. "My children," the letter started, "and my grandchildren. If you are hearing this, then I am gone, and I hope you have taken a moment to remember me kindly before you begin dividing what I left behind." Lorraine's smile faltered, just slightly. "I want to be very clear," the letter continued. "Every decision I made was made while I was of sound mind. No one pressured me. No one influenced me. And no one took advantage of me." Lorraine's foot stopped tapping. "I loved all of you," Grandma wrote. "But love is not the same as time, and time is not the same as effort." I felt my throat tighten. For years, I watched who showed up, who called, who listened, who treated me like a person instead of an obligation. Lorraine shifted in her chair. I also watched who accused others of favoritism when what they truly resented was their own absence. The room went very still. The executor continued, his voice steady, unchanging, even as the air grew heavier with each word. "I do not apologize for rewarding care with care. Presence with presence. Love with love." Lorraine opened her mouth, then closed it. The letter wasn't finished. And neither was my grandmother. Not when the executor cleared his throat. Not when Lorraine shifted again, this time louder. Not when my cousin let out a breath she didn't seem to realize she'd been holding. The letter was doing something none of us expected. It was taking the air out of the room. The executor continued. "I know some of you will be surprised," Grandma had written. "Others will be angry. A few of you may feel embarrassed. That is not my intention, but it is not my responsibility either." Lorraine let out a small, humorless laugh. Unbelievable. The executor didn't look up. He kept reading. "I will not allow my memory to be used as a weapon. I will not allow my love to be questioned as if it were a prize that could be stolen." I felt my chest tighten. Not with triumph. With recognition. This was her voice. Calm. Firm. The same voice she used when she told you no and didn't feel the need to explain herself. Lorraine leaned forward. "This is inappropriate," she said. "This shouldn't be read like this." The executor finally looked up. The instructions were explicit. Grandma's words resumed. "To the one who insists I favored someone unfairly, I ask you to ask yourself a difficult question. When was the last time you came just to sit with me?" Lorraine froze. "When was the last time you called without asking for something?" My uncle swallowed. My cousin stared at the table. My mother's grip tightened on her napkin. "I kept track," the letter said. "Not out of bitterness. Out of honesty." Lorraine shook her head slowly. "This is manipulation," she muttered. "This is her being turned against her own family." The executor read on, unshaken. "I am not a child. I was not lonely because I was abandoned. I was lonely because some of you chose distance and then blamed others for filling the space." That one landed hard. I didn't look at Lorraine. I didn't need to. I could feel her unraveling without seeing it. I made my choices freely, Grandma wrote. And I stand by them. Lorraine pushed her chair back abruptly. This is ridiculous, she snapped. This letter is clearly meant to shame people. That's not like her. I almost laughed, because it was exactly like her. Grandma had always believed in consequences delivered quietly, without cruelty, but without apology. The executor continued. To the grandchild who stood by me without expectation, I thank you. Not because you earned anything, but because you gave something. Lorraine's eyes snapped to me. Sharp, accusing, desperate. I felt every pair of eyes follow hers. The room had shifted. The story Lorraine had been telling was collapsing, and she could feel it. You could see it in the way her hands clenched, the way her composure started to crack at the edges. This is favoritism, she said louder now. She's admitting it. The executor didn't pause. I'm instructed to read the letter in full. And I'm telling you to stop, Lorraine said. He didn't. Favoritism, Grandma's letter continued, is loving without reason. What I gave was recognition. Recognition. Not reward. Not bribery. Recognition. For those who feel wronged, the letter said. I suggest you look not at what others received, but at what you chose not to give. Lorraine stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly across the floor. This is a disgrace, she said. She's punishing us for living our lives. No one agreed with her. That was the moment I noticed it. The silence had changed. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was judgment. And for the first time since the funeral, Lorraine realized something she hadn't prepared for. The room was no longer on her side. Lorraine didn't sit back down. She paced, back and forth along the edge of the dining room, heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor, like the sound alone might interrupt what was happening. This isn't legal, she said. A letter like this shouldn't influence anything. The executor glanced at her briefly. The letter explains the will. It does not alter it. That made her stop. Explains. Meaning the decisions had already been made. Grandma's words continued, steady and unyielding. I divided what I had with intention. Not to reward obedience. Not to punish independence. But to acknowledge effort, kindness, and presence. Lorraine laughed again, louder this time. So now we're being graded? No one responded. I will not pretend that every relationship was equal, the letter said. Some of you visited. Some of you didn't. Some of you listened. Some of you spoke only when it benefited you. I felt my mother inhale sharply beside me. I was never confused about who cared for me, Grandma wrote. And I was never confused about who cared for what I had. Lorraine's pacing slowed. Her voice dropped. This is her trying to control us even now. The executor read on. I expect some of you will say I was manipulated. Let me be clear. The only pressure I felt was the disappointment of being treated like a burden. Lorraine's face flushed. That's not fair, she said. She knew I was busy. The room stayed silent. Busy, Grandma's letter echoed, almost cruelly in its timing, is a word we use when we don't want to say unwilling. I didn't know whether to cry or breathe. I'd never heard Grandma speak so plainly. She'd always been gentle, always chosen peace. But this wasn't anger. This was truth written without cushioning. I leave more to the one who showed up not because they expected something, the letter continued, but because they believed I mattered. Lorraine stopped pacing. She turned to face the table. So that's it, she asked. Years of being the responsible one, the one with a life, and I'm punished for it. The executor didn't respond. Grandma did. Responsibility, the letter said, is not the same as availability. Love requires the latter. Lorraine looked around the room, searching for support. She didn't find it. My uncle stared at his hands. My cousin blinked rapidly, like she was seeing things differently for the first time. My mother sat very still, her expression unreadable. The letter wasn't just addressing Lorraine anymore. It was exposing everyone. I did not intend to cause division, Grandma wrote. But I will not protect anyone from the consequences of their choices. Lorraine's voice cracked. She's turning us against each other. No one moved. I hope, the letter continued, that when this is over, you remember me not for what I left you, but for what I asked of you while I was alive. The executor paused. He turned the page. There is one final section. Lorraine's head snapped up. Her confidence, what little remained, was gone now. She had been fighting the wrong thing. The letter wasn't about favoritism. It was about accountability. And it wasn't finished yet. The executor adjusted the paper slightly, as if even he felt the weight of what came next. "This final portion," he said, "was marked to be read last." Lorraine's hands trembled. Just barely. She tried to hide it by folding her arms again, but the control she'd been so proud of was slipping. The letter resumed. "There is something I must address directly," Grandma had written, "because silence has been mistaken for approval and patience mistaken for weakness." I felt a chill run through me. "When I was accused of favoring one grandchild over others," the letter said, "I listened." Lorraine stiffened. "I listened while my love was framed as bias, while my choices were questioned, while my integrity was quietly undermined." Lorraine shook her head. "She never said this to me." The executor didn't pause. "I did not respond then," Grandma wrote, "because I believed time would correct the misunderstanding." The room felt smaller now. But when those accusations continued, even after I asked for peace, I realized something important. Lorraine's breathing grew shallow. "Some people do not want fairness," the letter said. "They want control over the story." That landed like a slap. I watched Lorraine's face go pale. "For that reason," Grandma continued, "I documented everything." The executor lifted a second envelope from his briefcase. Lorraine's eyes widened. "What is that?" she demanded. "Supporting documents," he replied calmly. "Calendars. Call logs. Notes written in Grandma's neat handwriting. Dates. Missed visits. Canceled plans. I kept track of who came," Grandma wrote, "and who promised they would." Lorraine stepped forward. "This is absurd." "I kept track of who called," the letter said, "and who did not return my messages." My cousin let out a quiet gasp. "I kept track," Grandma wrote, "because I was told I was imagining my loneliness." Lorraine's voice rose. "This is an invasion of privacy." The executor finally looked directly at her. "Everything here is admissible and lawful." The letter continued, relentless now. "I did not confront anyone with this information," Grandma wrote. "I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I swallowed hard. I waited," she wrote. "And I decided." Lorraine's composure shattered. "This is her punishing me," she said, her voice breaking, "for not being there enough." The letter answered her. "No," Grandma wrote. "This is me refusing to reward resentment." The executor placed the documents neatly on the table. No one reached for them. No one needed to. The truth had already filled the room. "I do not owe anyone equality," Grandma wrote. "I owe myself honesty." Lorraine looked around wildly, searching for someone, anyone, to disagree. No one did. "I hope this letter frees you," Grandma wrote, "because I am no longer here to carry your anger for you." The executor folded the letter. The sound was final, and in that moment, Lorraine understood something she'd avoided for years. This wasn't about me. It never had been. It was about what she hadn't shown up to be. No one spoke for a long moment. The documents lay untouched on the table, neat and devastating in their quiet order. Calendars with empty squares. Notes written in careful ink. Evidence that didn't shout, didn't accuse, just existed. Lorraine was the first to break the silence. "This is humiliating," she said. Not angry now. Not loud. Just wounded. "She could have talked to me." "She did," my mother said softly. It was the first time she'd spoken since the letter began. Lorraine turned to her, startled. "When?" My mother met her gaze. "She told you she felt forgotten. More than once." Lorraine opened her mouth. "Closed it." "That's not the same as this," Lorraine said finally, gesturing at the table. "This is public." My uncle exhaled slowly. "So were your accusations." That landed harder than anything Grandma had written. Lorraine looked at him like she didn't recognize him. "I was just saying what everyone was thinking," she snapped. "No," my cousin said quietly. "You were saying what you were afraid of." That surprised all of us. Especially Lorraine. The room felt different now. Less tense. More exposed. The executor cleared his throat. "If there are no further questions, we can proceed with the final confirmations." Lorraine sank back into her chair. Defeated. Not because she'd lost money, though she had, but because she'd lost the story. The one where she was overlooked. The one where she was wronged. The one where I was the villain. When the executor finished and gathered his papers, he nodded politely and left us alone in the house that suddenly felt too quiet. No one rushed to leave. My cousin stood and picked up one of the calendars. She studied it, then set it back down gently like it might bruise. "I didn't know," she said. "I really didn't. Grandma's plan hadn't just protected me. It had forced everyone to see her clearly." Lorraine stood slowly. Her shoulders sagged now, the fight drained out of her. She made me look selfish, she said. No one corrected her. Because she had. I need some air, she muttered, grabbing her coat. At the door, she paused. You know, she said without turning around, she wouldn't have wanted this much damage. I surprised myself by answering. She wouldn't have wanted this much denial either. Lorraine flinched. Then she left. The house exhaled with her. We sat there for a while longer, the weight of truth settling into something quieter, something like understanding. That night, alone in my car, I cried for the first time since the funeral. Not out of relief. Out of gratitude. Because my grandmother had seen me. And she had refused to let her love be turned into a weapon. A week passed before I returned to Grandma's house alone. The others had already taken what they were entitled to. Furniture gone. Drawers emptied. The house felt lighter, but not empty. Like it was holding its breath. I walked slowly, touching familiar things. The chipped mug she always used. The faded arm of the couch. The hallway where she measured my height every year with pencil marks she never erased. Lorraine hadn't come back. That, more than anything, told me how deeply the letter had cut. The executor met me there briefly to hand over the last items assigned to me. A small box, some paperwork, and one more envelope. This wasn't part of the formal reading, he said. She asked that you receive it privately. My hands shook as I took it. Inside was a shorter letter. Less formal. More her. She wrote about ordinary things. The garden she never finished planting. The neighbor who brought soup too often. The sweater she hoped I'd keep because it was warm even if it wasn't stylish. Then the line that undid me. I know they will say I favored you, she wrote. Let them. I know the truth, and so do you. I sat on the edge of her bed and cried into that letter like it was her shoulder. She hadn't defended me to make a point. She had done it so I wouldn't doubt myself later. So much of life, she wrote, is people telling you who you are until you almost believe them. I wanted you to hear my voice louder than theirs. I thought of Lorraine, of how confidently she'd spoken, of how easily doubt could have crept in if Grandma hadn't prepared for it. That was the real inheritance. Not money, not property, clarity. When I left the house, I locked the door gently, like she was just sleeping. Lorraine called me 2 days later. I almost didn't answer. I didn't plan for it to go like that, she said, without greeting. I know, I replied. A long pause. She made me look cruel. She made herself clear, I said. Another pause. I still think she favored you, Lorraine said quietly. I smiled then. Not out of triumph. She chose me, I said. That's different. Lorraine didn't respond. We haven't spoken since. And maybe that's how it needed to be. Because some relationships only survive when the truth stays buried. Grandma refused to let that happen. She told her story herself. And in doing so, she gave me something no accusation could ever take away. Peace. Months passed. Life returned to its familiar rhythm, but something underneath it had changed. Conversations felt clearer. Silences felt more honest. The tension that used to hover at family gatherings, unspoken sour, was gone. Because there were no more gatherings. Lorraine didn't host holidays anymore. She didn't call. She didn't send cards. The family adjusted around her absence the same way it once had around Grandma's presence. Quietly, without announcement. I thought I'd feel victorious. I didn't. What I felt was settled. One afternoon, while sorting through old papers, I found the funeral program tucked into a drawer. Grandma's photo stared back at me, that familiar half-smile she wore when she knew something you didn't. I realized then that Lorraine had been wrong from the very beginning. This had never been about favoritism. It was about witnessing. Grandma had watched us all become who we were. She hadn't judged us for our lives or our choices. She had simply noticed who showed up when it mattered. Lorraine wanted equality without effort. Grandma believed love left fingerprints. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how things ended. I don't, because my grandmother didn't leave chaos behind her. She left truth. She didn't humiliate anyone. She didn't shame. She didn't lash out. She clarified. And clarity is powerful enough on its own. Lorraine once told me love was something you ran out of. Grandma taught me it was something you practiced. When the executor opened that envelope, it wasn't money that changed hands. It was the narrative. And for the first time, the story belonged to the person who had lived it. My grandmother. I keep her final letter in my nightstand. Not to reread often. Just to know it's there. A reminder that being chosen isn't about being favored. It's about being present. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.